After getting burned by the best player in the world, Charlie McAvoy was a difference maker for Team USA against Canada on Saturday.
You're Locked On Bruins, your daily podcast on the Boston Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Bruins fans, and welcome back to the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast. I'm your host, Ian McLaren, and this is a daily show where we discuss all things Spoked B. Today is Monday, February 17th, and I want to thank you so much for making Locked On Bruins part of your daily routine. Free and available on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Now, if every hockey game was like Canada versus USA on Saturday, then this sport would be the most popular in the world. We are going to break down all the shenanigans from Saturday night's game, beginning with the fights, to the goals, to the huge win for Team USA. We'll also touch on Team Sweden and Elias Lindholm, Brad Marchand, Team Canada, bring you all the latest on the Bruins in this tournament and take a look at the week ahead, which will include some Bruins action as they head back to the ice on, tomorrow for practice and then Saturday in game action. Before we get into all that, a quick reminder, you can find the podcast on social media at Locked NHL Bruins, and you can find me, my hockey thoughts, dad jokes at Ian C. McLaren. It certainly was an emotionally charged atmosphere in Montreal on Saturday night. And yes, I am a Bruins fan living in Canada, of which there are many. Of course, I was rooting for Brad Marchand and the rest of the boys in red and white on Saturday night. And not to get too political, but obviously there are some comments, actions being levied by the President of the United States that's causing some Canadian people to react in a way that some feel is disrespectful, namely booing the anthem. And make no mistake, people weren't booing the Kachucks, although we as Bruins fans have been doing that for years. They weren't booing Austin Matthews because he's an American who plays for the Toronto Maple Leafs. It's a form of protest or self-expression against some perceived disrespect towards the country of Canada. And there was a lot riding on this game, not just in terms of the Four Nations tournament, but also that pride, that feeling of it's Canada's game, etc. And right out of the gate, Team USA literally tried to beat that out of Team Canada. The Kachucks, JT Miller later admitted that they had a group chat and decided that they were going to come out literally swinging. 3 fights in the first 9 seconds of this one, which is basically unheard of in international hockey. The IIHF has very strict rules about fighting in the Olympics per se. To see that happen, I was expecting some fireworks, but I was not expecting that to happen at all. And in a way, it was good for Canada to take the Kachucks off the ice for 5 minutes to start the game because they had both scored 2 goals in the tournament opener against Finland. But it also set the tone for the game. And while Connor McDavid got me off my couch with one of the best goals I've ever seen, and it came at the expense of defenseman Charlie McAvoy, who was burned on the play with McDavid just streaking into the zone, kind of feigning perhaps a pass and going backhand shelf on Connor Hellebuck, who's the best goaltender in the world. McAvoy and the Americans came back and asserted their dominance with some huge hits. I believe McAvoy was credited with at least 4 hits in this one. 5 hits, I should say. 2 of them specifically were levied against Connor McDavid and in quite spectacular fashion. Even me as a Canadian, I was like, Dang, Charlie, that is pretty impressive. He also leveled a couple on Sidney Crosby. And after, yes, getting burned on that play by McDavid, he was a factor. In fact, his one hit on McDavid, who was trying to get into the offensive zone along the boards, just absolutely trucked. And then 30 seconds later, Jake Gensel scored to tie things for America. Now, a lot of Americans gleefully celebrating the downfall of Team Canada's goaltending, which came with Jordan Binnington just allowing a couple questionable goals in this one. Canada leaving 3 of the top 5 save percentage goalies in the NHL this season in Logan Thompson, Darcy Kemper, Mackenzie Blackwood, leaving them at home while Jordan Binnington was given the net, endorsed by Bruins general manager Don Sweeney, I should add. For me, obviously conflicted, trying to root for Jordan Binnington. I wish he had put in this kind of performance against the Bruins back in 2019. But having said that, Canada only coming out and scoring 1 goal is a huge testament to the defense of Team USA. Charlie McAvoy with 19 minutes and 27 seconds of ice time, 4th on Team USA. He was wearing the A. Jacob Slavin with some unbelievable defense. Brock Faber, Noah Hannafin, as well as Zach Werenski, Adam Fox. That group deserves a lot of credit for keeping the Team Canada offense at bay, for suppressing their attack, and for allowing Connor Hellebuck to do what he does, which is make big saves on everything but the most sensational of plays from Connor McDavid. But Charlie McAvoy, hugely instrumental in this one with those hits. And again, you could really argue that his hit on Connor McDavid with Gensel scoring 30 seconds later was the turning point in this one. Yes, it only tied things up, but Canada was not able to score from there. The Team USA defense was just dogged in their pursuit of McDavid, Crosby, Mark Stone, etc. And yeah, there were some questionable deployments in this one as well, with our boy Brad Marchand only getting 8 minutes and 23 seconds of ice time. He and Sam Bennett combined for 5 shots on goal, and they both got the least amount of shifts and total amount of ice time among Canadian forwards in this one. Bennett with 3 shots on goal to tie Mark Stone and Connor McDavid for the team high. Marchand had as many points or as many shots as Braden Point in half the ice time. Same amount of shots as Brandon Hagel in 5 fewer minutes. More shots than Mitch Marner, who had more than 10 minutes. More shots than Nathan McKinnon, Anthony Cirelli, John Cooper of the Tampa Bay Lightning favoring his boys in this one, giving more ice time to Point, Hagel, and Cirelli than the 4th line of Reinhart, Marchand, and who's the other guy? Seth Jarvis, to his detriment, because Reinhart and Bennett and Marchand, who have become buds inexplicably over the course of this tournament, had 5 shots on goal, which was about 20% of Canada's total shots. They generated, 26 shots. 5 of them came from those 2 guys. They should have had more ice time. You can really question Canada's decision to name these goalies. Don Sweeney's part of that. Part of the reason why Logan Thompson isn't there, for example, is because he had some beef with Bruce Cassidy, who is part of the coaching staff. So some really questionable decisions for Team Canada here in this tournament, but full credit to the Americans for getting the job done, for suppressing Canada's offensive attack, and they are off to the final, while we have Canada, Sweden, and Finland all with a shot to clinch the other final slot. with games coming up here on Monday afternoon. And we'll take a look at that clinching scenario as well as an update on Elias Lindholm at this tournament and some more on McAvoy and Marchand here as the podcast continues. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on that than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. The app is so easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. So Monday at the Four Nations Face-Off, we have a double header beginning at 1 p.m. because it's a holiday up here in Canada as well as in America. So we get some afternoon action. And here are the Four Nations clinching scenarios. On Saturday, we of course had Team USA beating Canada in regulation. And we had Sweden losing to Finland in overtime. USA is already off to the final. And here we have the clinching scenarios. Canada will clinch a berth in the final Thursday against Team USA if they defeat Finland in regulation, or if Canada beats Finland in overtime or shootout, and any result of US-Sweden other than a regulation win by Sweden. Finland will clinch if they beat Canada in regulation, or if they beat Canada and US-Sweden goes into overtime. Sweden will clinch if they beat US in regulation and the Canada-Finland game is decided in overtime or a shootout. Sweden has the disadvantage of not having won yet so far this tournament. They've lost twice, meaning if they finish with the same amount of points as Canada or Finland, they would not get the tiebreaker because they have lost to both. Canada would have the tie-break advantage over Sweden. And of course, whoever wins the Canada-Finland game will have the advantage there. Canada, Finland, Sweden can all finish with 5 points each with regulation wins in their games. USA well ahead in 6th. They cannot be passed. If the games go to overtime or a shootout, things can change a bit. So a lot on the line on Monday here for all three of those countries. Now, with all due respect to Sweden and Finland, everybody is wanting a rematch between Canada and America in the final game. Sweden, as I mentioned, losing 4-3 to Finland in overtime on Saturday. Our boy Elias Lindholm with 0 points. He was a -1, 0 shots on goal. He did have 3 hits in this one, but he's been largely invisible for Team Sweden so far in this tournament. Marchand does have the 1 goal that was scored in the game against Sweden, but has not been given a lot of ice time by head coach John Cooper. And you could really argue that he should have been given a bit more ice time, seeing as he had some pretty good looks late for the Team Canada. He had a nice rush into the zone and fed, I believe it was Sam Reinhart, who was not able to connect on that pass. But he's a clutch player, a big game performer, and he should be given more opportunities to make an impact for Team Canada, especially considering he has a goal already in this tournament. Team Canada's treating this one like a game 7, which may not bode well for Connor McDavid, seeing as he has experience recently playing against Alexander Barkov in a game 7 and did not come out on top. Their brain trust, again, they have a short runway to figure out line combinations and deployment, and they also have to figure out a way to get the best out of their best players, who were largely ineffective against Team USA on Saturday. Sidney Crosby, in fact, coughing up a turnover that led directly to Dylan Larkin's game-winning goal. He perhaps is not 100%. He was banged up before the tournament began, missed a game for the Penguins, maybe shouldn't be playing, but Brad Marchand has averaged only under 10 minutes a game, and maybe that's a guy that you want to lean on a bit more, considering he came up big in 2016 in the World Cup for Team Canada. Canada was playing without Cale Makar, who was out with an illness. They're also missing Shea Theodore, who was banged up. So couple that with Crosby maybe not being 100%. You can see kind of what they're dealing with there. But at the end of the day, they still have the horses to get it done, and they are just not doing so. You can blame Jordan Binnington all you want for those 2 goals that were scored on Saturday night, but the reality is you're not going to beat Team USA if you're only scoring 1 goal. McAvoy has been a part of the leadership group for the team. He was wearing an A, playing on the top defensive pairing with Zach Werenski, and those 2 hits that he leveled were massive, memorable hit on Connor McDavid. That's going to be on repeat for a long, long time. Playing with his father-in-law, Mike Sullivan, and the forgotten man for the Bruins here is Jeremy Swayman, who is going to be, on the outside looking in, as is Jake Ottinger, unless Connor Hellebuyck comes up lame here with an injury. Marchand, again, not getting a ton of playing time. He has made it known that he wants to play next year for Team Canada at the Olympics. He had a big goal in the first game against Sweden, playing on the third line with Sam Bennett and Seth Jarvis, and just not getting the same ice time. John Cooper perhaps making an error in leaning too much on his guys from the Tampa Bay Lightning. Finally, Elias Lindholm has not made much of an impact for Team Sweden. He's had low minutes playing on the 4th line. And I was hoping for a bit more from him to try to find his confidence, but alas, not the case. So that's kind of the lay of the land here as we head into Monday's action at the Four Nations Face-Off. On tomorrow's podcast, we'll be back to recap everything that happens today and bring you all the latest on the Boston Bruins as well, who are resuming practice here on Tuesday. Before we wrap things up today, let's take a look at the week ahead, and we'll do that here as the podcast continues. If you're looking to hire like yesterday, there is no quicker and better way to find the best possible candidates than Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job posts seen on other sites. Indeed's sponsored job posts put your post at the top of the page and help you reach the right candidates faster. The pressure's on, and every day without the right person is a setback. What you need is Indeed's sponsored jobs, and you can speed up your hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on Locked On Boston Bruins. Terms and conditions apply, but if you're hiring, Indeed is all you need. Now, I do want to say that the Four Nations Face-Off has been just unbelievable hockey. Canada, USA, one of the best games I've seen in quite a while. The beginning, of course, was sensational with the 3 fights. Obviously, it went downhill for Team Canada afterwards. I think perhaps the game as a whole was a bit overhyped. Got a little, I don't want to say boring, but it got slower, of course, in the second and third periods. But that first period was unbelievable. And I'm hoping that we'll see another Canada USA game here coming up on Thursday for the conclusion of the Four Nations face-off. I would have thought maybe they would have had 2 days between the games in Montreal and Boston, but we're going to have 2 days off after today's quote-unquote semifinals. If Finland beats Canada, that would be a major upset. If USA chooses to lose to Sweden in regulation, that would really give the Swedes a boost and put the pressure on. Well, the Canada-Finland game will already be decided. It's 1-0. So let's say Canada picks up 2 points and they'll have the tiebreaker over Sweden. If Sweden were to beat USA in regulation, they would finish with 5 points and therefore make the final. So that's what's on the line there. Canada, if they come out with a regulation win over Finland, as they should, then the Sweden-USA game will be fairly meaningless. But if Canada does not win in regulation, they don't pick up the full 3 points, they finish with 4 points, then Sweden could advance with a regulation win. So a lot on the line in that afternoon game that will set things up for Thursday's final, which will be played at TD Garden, as well as today's games between TBD and Team USA. Then there will only be 1 day off between the Four Nations final and the resumption of the NHL schedule. The Bruins will be in action on Saturday with a 7 p.m. Eastern time game against the Anaheim Ducks. Coming out of the break, looking to secure a playoff spot or get back into the playoff picture. And that's, of course, a game that we will preview here on Friday on the podcast. The Bruins will come out of the break. It's going to be a pretty tough march. Let's just say that. They'll come out of the break with that game against the Ducks on Saturday. And then next week they will take on the Toronto Maple Leafs, the New York Islanders, who are in the thick of the playoff race, and then the Pittsburgh Penguins. And then they have a 4-game week after that. So hopefully Marchand, McAvoy, Lindholm all escape this tournament unscathed. Hopefully we see USA, Canada once again on Thursday in the final. And hopefully you will subscribe to Locked On Boston Bruins if you have not already. I hope you have all had a great Monday so far, especially if you're not working. Helping family move today. Had a pretty chill weekend watching Cobra Kai, watching hockey. Went to see Captain America, which was okay, except for the ending, which probably would have packed more punch if they hadn't spoiled it in the trailers. But that's a discussion for another day. Thank you so much for joining me here on Locked On Boston Bruins. Please do check out the Locked On Fantasy Hockey podcast next. Steal and Flip will give you all the expertise you need to get the edge over your league mates. Find it on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your favorite team every single day. Thanks again for taking the time to listen. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. And we'll talk to you again here on the next episode of Locked On Boston Bruins.